So the Los Angeles Clippers made some pretty great roster moves during the trade deadline, and they acquired some pieces that will ultimately make them better as a team. They acquired pieces that are going to help them win now, but also have a mix of some core pieces for the future whenever PG and Kawhi retire or leave the team. And today we're going to talk about the Clippers trade deadline and, talking about their moves overall because they made some pretty great moves. And with the West being pretty much stacked after that trade deadline, we'll see how the Clippers pretty much stack up against them in the future. So we'll get into the first deal here. So the Clippers, they received Bones Hyland and they traded 2 second-round picks. So they receive a high flyer in Bones Hyland who can prove to have some value on the offensive end. Defensively, he's not really that great and he's probably one of the worst defenders at the guard position. But, with PG and Kawhi on the team, I don't really think that should be much of a problem. But, the backcourt, I don't really know. With Bones Hyland on the team, maybe start Norman Powell at the 2 and then have PG, Kawhi, maybe Zubac, or you probably have PG at the 2 and then Kawhi 3 and then Marcus Morris at the 4 or Markieff Morris. So yeah, Bones Hyland, not a great defender. Offensively, he's great. Looking at his stats overall this season, 12 points per game, around 2 rebounds and around 3 assists. Field goal percentage is not too great at around 40% from the field, but the three-pointer is pretty good at around 38, which is great to see. Just defensively, he's not great. And, with the Nuggets, they're looking to move on from him and have Jamal Murray running the offense. We'll see what happens with this. So, Bones Hyland on the team, he could definitely be a good complementary piece alongside PG and Kawhi. We'll see what happens with Bones. He could maybe be a spot up. We'll see what happens. Not maybe a primary ball handler, and a guy that can make the occasional 3. So, we'll get into the second trade here. So, the Clippers, they received Eric Gordon and they traded in a 3-team trade with Houston and Memphis where they traded John Wall and the pick swap to Houston. I think the Rockets, they got John Wall and Danny Green with the pick swap, and Memphis got some second-round picks. So bringing Gordon gives the Clippers a guy that can knock down the occasional 3, while also being able to be an on-ball guy some games and play some solid defense. Coming from a Rockets fan, he's been pretty great as of late. Looking at his last 10 games, 18 points per game, around 4 rebounds and around 2.5 assists, on around 49% from the field and 34% from 3. So Eric Gordon, he's a good vet. In Houston, a lot of Rockets fans slandered him for, not, basically giving up on the team and, not playing to his ability. But, he's 34 years old and as of late, he's been amazing. Been dropping some double-digit games being 34. So he still has a lot of scoring ability left in the tank. So for the Clippers, off the bench, you get a good scoring spark in Eric Gordon. Someone that's going to be able to knock down the 3 while also being a pretty good, actually a pretty underrated defender and also a pretty good ball handler at that. So whenever the Clippers, they need a guy off the bench that can score, Eric Gordon's going to be that guy. So next, or the final trade actually, is Mason Plumlee. So the Clippers, they received Mason Plumlee and they did trade Reggie Jackson straight up. So yeah, they finally fill in the void of the backup center position, which is great to see. Mason Plumlee has been having a pretty good season with the Hornets, and he averaged around 12 points per game, around 9.5 rebounds, and around 3.5 assists. So looking at his shooting splits, 67% from the field and 61% from the free throw line. But Mason Plumlee, he's been having a pretty underrated season, and at the center position, he's one of the more underrated passers. In the last 10 games, he's been averaging around 4 assists per game, which is pretty good for a center. And with his ability being around 7 foot off the bench, he's going to prove to be a guy that can be, I wouldn't say have pretty much an impact on offense. He's going to be rebounding the ball. He's going to be scoring some games. It's going to be like Zubac in a sense, I guess, but basically off the bench in a more diminished role. So we'll see what happens with the Clippers. Looking at their roster overall, they made some pretty good moves. They did trade Luke Kennard, I think, to the Grizzlies too, in that John Wall trade. So looking at the Clippers depth chart right here, they still have Nick Batum, good defender right there for their team. One of their best defenders on the team. Robert Covington still on the team, also a great defender, one of the best defenders on the team too. Bones Hyland, Kawhi Leonard, Terrence Mann also. I think Terrence Mann is probably one of the biggest winners here, being a guy that has earned a spot in the starting lineup and has a lot of potential. Maybe Jason Preston gets some minutes, I don't know, but Yeah, I mean the Clippers didn't give up too much depth, and in return, I mean they received some pretty good vets and a pretty good young player in Bones Highlands. So, you guys, let me know what you guys think about the Clippers. Looking at their overall, looking at their standings overall in the West, they currently stand. Let's see, fifth overall, being 31 and 27. So we'll see what happens in the second half of the season. That's the end. I'm out.